It's Ryan Lizza here with Paul Krugman. Paul, good to see you again. Our last chat was excellent, very, very popular. And so it's good to do this again with you.
Yeah. I mean, it's too bad that nothing happened this past week to talk about. I mean,
Well, yeah. I had texted you after reading your Lisa Cook piece yesterday and naturally said a million crazy things will happen between now and then, which is pretty much what happened. I don't think the crazy Trump cabinet meeting had finished when we were scheduling this. Um, but that's, I saw Garrett Graff wrote something today, describing like, two Watergate level things have already happened. Two things worse than Watergate have already happened this week. Um, and that's the world we're living in right now.
it's I did write warning about the crazy, which is now my general term, and there are now often every day, sometimes twice a day, there are things that would have been completely off the charts before, and yeah. Anyway, but the Lisa Cook affair is up my alley, and boy, quite amazing.
What do you want? You want to start? I want to get into the economic implications if this plan goes as Trump wants it to. But maybe let's just start a little bit with the. Um, Neither of us are lawyers, but with the law and the politicization of the Fed. Um, let's start there. How do you see that, and how different is this from every other administration that's been frustrated with the Federal Reserve?
Well, okay. So we have this we have this really kind of strange but historically highly successful institution. We have central banks, which are at a fundamental level just a branch of government, but we the details are a little funny, and it's kind of a quasi, um, uh, what the Brits sometimes call a quango, a quasi non-governmental organization. It's sort of, but for all practical purposes, it is an arm of the U.S. government, but has been given a lot of autonomy. The governors have long terms. They're supposed to be in political pressure. The reason, which is that it's so easy to abuse monetary policy. I think Frick, like, pretty much literally on a moment's notice, all that, if the Fed was a purely political creature, then the president can say, um, "Pump up those, numbers in time for the next election," or "I've been talking to this guy, and he thinks all economists are wrong about everything, and I believe him, so go and do this." You deliberately once upon a time, we said, "Well, we have a gold standard," but that turned out too well. So we have instead a group of technocrats who exercise their professional judgment and basically blow up. Ultimately, they're accountable to politics, but they blow it up. They don't. They make it hard to just.
Paul, let me just interrupt you for 1 second because I think your audio is choppy. Someone actually said that when you turn your head to the left, it's choppy, but I don't think that's just the issue. Is it, I don't know if you're using your laptop mic or excuse me, your,
Um, and Good work, but let me. What if I do? It might be one of those where.
I think Eileen speaks for everyone here when she says, please, please check your mic. I don't want to miss anything.
All right. I'm going to do what I can.
Now it's better.
Yeah, I think what's actually happening is the mic might be uh, getting interfered with by the phone stand. So let's see. How is that doing? How am I? Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so where we are. So we have this thing where in the United States, there's no legal independence for the Fed, but we have a 75-year understanding that the Fed will be independent. In some other places, it's actually in Europe and Britain, it's actually legal, but it has worked. We get we avoid politicization and irresponsible policy. The Fed is not always right, but it's never stupid. And it's, but now we have Trump coming in there and saying, well, I think, I want interest rates lower. And that's a complicated issue. And there is some case, but he wants interest rates 3 whole percentage points lower, which is insane, given that that inflation is actually a little bit above target and definitely heading higher. Um, but and what's turning now, we were wondering, what might he do? He gets to appoint the next chairman of the Federal Reserve next year, but the idea that he would turn to unsubstantiated accusations of financial Freudian slip, financial fraud
A true
to
Freudian slip.
uh, to try to force out a member of the Fed's board of governors, who just so happens to be a black woman, um, is that's a whole nother level. And it's not just about Lisa Cook. It's about saying to everybody at the Fed, if you don't cooperate, we will find a way to ruin your life.
I would
And
go even further than that and saying to everybody in public life, certainly
sure.
everyone in the government, but we will selectively prosecute you. We will dig up something on you, and you've got this guy sitting over there rummaging through people's mortgage applications
Yeah.
and turning mortgage fraud into now the most important crime that the Trump administration it was enforcing. I liked what you said about this. I wrote something yesterday on a similar point, that I feel almost uh, embarrassed, or there's getting into the details of Lisa Cook's mortgage applications, because it is so patently obvious that this is a pretextual investigation, a selective prosecution, that even to get into the weeds of what they alleged they found seems just totally besides the point, and even, and frankly irresponsible. I dug through some of these CNN and other pieces where they're spending 1,000 words doing the whole background about mortgage fraud, and if you have a primary residence in this, and it's like, who the fuck cares? Like,
And
they're all
I mean, and just um, you know, she her I the only if there was really solid evidence that she'd done something wrong, even if it's not something that's relevant, they would have presented it by now,
Yeah,
right? All we have
yeah,
now are not even the mortgage applications, but the securities backed by those mortgages, which say that she had two places listed as principal residence, and we don't even know if she said that. And principal is not quite the same thing as primary. And if you asked me, uh, there have been times when I had both a house in New Jersey and an apartment in New York. Uh, if you'd asked me about either one, is that your principal residence? I could have plausibly said, well, yeah. I wouldn't have thought
yeah.
about what is the exact legal meaning. Yeah, it's pretty important in my life. So no, this is crazy. This is
Yeah.
nothing that anybody, and it's all taking place when she's a professor at Michigan State. It's not involved. You can fire somebody at the Fed for cause, but for cause means it's supposed to mean something like they've been drinking on the job, or they've been stealing office supplies, right? Not that when they at some point in their private life, they may have filled out an application. So this is
Just to
so
clarify, what
obviously
you're
not.
saying is, whatever is the truth about these applications, it happened before she ever started at the Fed.
That's right. And there's been no allegation even that she's done anything wrong in her job at the Fed. I mean, it's not, we have there are plenty of officials in the in this current administration who do appear to be drinking on the job, who do who who don't seem to actually be showing up for work, so this is crazy, and everybody understands that. I mean, this is clearly, in a way, almost the craziness of the charges is part of the message. It is, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have done anything wrong. We will find a way to get you.
Yeah, yeah, make life extremely difficult for you, pile up the legal bills, and
Yeah.
if she resigns, the case probably, goes away. Paul, do you have a strong view one way or the other about the legality and the, coming litigation over whether Trump can indeed, fire, someone without cause? I know it's complicated because he's saying the mortgage stuff is the cause. But anyway, any read on the legal merits yet?
mean, I'm not a lawyer, but not only is it really, for causes, everything I've read says that that really involves some kind of dereliction on the job, and
Yeah,
that's not here. And the Fed, sorry, not the Supreme Court, which gave Trump far too much leeway to fire federal employees, did a carve out for the Fed, especially
yeah.
protecting Fed officials.
That
And
was such an unusual. At the time, that was very unusual that they did that. It's like they saw this coming.
well, I don't know. They
It was in an
whatever
emergency
they were
order.
thinking, they may have been
Yeah,
thinking that um, I don't know why they. Well, I can go on, but I'm not a Supreme Court expert except to say that the whole thing was shameful. But the carve out for the Fed makes this even crazier. Um, and it's not we Trump. We did Trump actually fire her? He said he did, but the Fed has not acknowledged that she's been fired. And, uh, I don't know if she's going into the office, uh, continuing to do her job. So it's not, we aren't even in a situation where clearly she's been fired and is appealing. The thing, it's something where, Trump said something which may or may not be true. And uh, which is not the first time that has happened. I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of imaginary stuff, and um, that Trump claims that he has that he doesn't. So, the $600 billion from the European Union, which the Europeans claim to have heard nothing about. So, but what it is, but fun. The important point. I mean, I think it's a terrible thing what's being done to Lisa Cook, but she's not the point. Uh, it's the Fed, and in general, it's the idea that now personal, um, y personal intimidation, uh, kind of, you think you have a blameless life, we will find a crime. That's, uh that's authoritarianism. That's right out of the playbook.
100%. And our criminal code is so riddled with, stringent language that goes unenforced that anyone who has a mildly complicated professional life, paying taxes, entering, signing contracts and putting them in the mail, signing lots of mortgage documents. The chances for a slip up of this nature that then the current regime will describe as some awful crime is very, very high. I remember I wrote about this yesterday. There was this book, Three Felonies a Day by Harvey Silvergate, guy who started FIRE, sort of right-leaning libertarian, about this issue. And, you know, dozens of Republican congressmen for years have been talking about that and about, that issue and the dangers of a government that started to enforce every law on the books that currently goes unenforced because of prosecutorial discretion. And a version of that world has now arrived, as far as I can tell. And this is only month 7 of this administration.
Yeah, I have to also say, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, which produced this, um, now they have millions and millions of mortgages on their books. So this has to have been a targeted search. And if that isn't illegal, it should be. This is they're not supposed to be an instrument of political enforcement.
I have been wondering the same thing, and I haven't seen much commentary on this. Is this guy Pulte? I'm not sure if it's Pulte or Pult, whatever his name is. This former
Yeah.
construction guy is out there attacking her publicly and accusing her of crimes, and nobody has explained why or how he pulled her, fairly old mortgage records.
Yeah.
And um, so, all right, just as you said, this isn't just about Lisa Cook, as awful as it is what they're doing. It's about the independence of the Fed. And give us the rundown. I was watching this yesterday. I was watching like the financial, one of the financial networks, and they had some Wall Street guy on there talking about how, you know, they weren't good.
Wait one
They
moment.
weren't, no, God,
This is the next one. What are you going to be done? An hour or so from now, or less? 45 minutes? Sorry.
that's
We
okay.
we've had a little confusion here.
That's
Uh,
okay. You work
but
from home,
yes.
so the boss is checking in on you.
Uh, yeah. Sorry. It's one of those days where, uh, yeah. This is my second, third, whatever of the day. So anyway, okay.
Believe me, if you could see what's on the other side here in this place with the dog and other people working, you would, I know exactly what you're talking about. So, Paul, let's just the independence of the Fed. Is it? Are we ready to declare that it's over? And what are the, short and long term implications of that?
Well, it's I suspect that it's not over yet. That in fact, the current and there's too much into the weeds here, but it turns out that the board of governors is only sort of half of the group that sets interest rates, and the rest is regional Fed presidents, and they who have their own, uh, and can't be appointed or replaced by the president, or at least shouldn't be. So it interest rate policy probably doesn't get um, completely politicized yet, unless people are just frightened.
Wait, I don't think that's too into the weeds. Just unpack that a little bit.
Okay, so there's the Fed, the organization, which has a board of governors, and if Trump manages to force Lisa Cook out, 4 of the 7 governors will have been Trump appointed. But the Board of Governors runs the Fed, which actually has, among other things, does a lot of bank supervision. But interest rate decisions are so the Fed also, there are regional Feds. There's the New York Fed, the Chicago Fed, the Atlanta Fed, um, that are independent organizations, partially. Their presidents are chosen in part by the local business community, and the uh, and decisions on interest rates are made by the Federal Open Market Committee, which is the governors plus a rotating group of regional Fed presidents. And Trump will not have a majority on the Federal Open Market Committee uh, for unless he can start driving out regional Fed presidents for years to come, even if he replaces Jay Powell with some hack, that chairman might be outvoted on interest rates. So at least in a formal sense, um, we may not yet have presidential control of monetary policy for a while yet. But of course, the intimidation is taking place, and the odds that um, somewhere in the next couple of years, monetary policy will in fact become a creature of the White House, has got to be at least even odds. Now, the reason that matters is, monetary policy. Well, how suppose that that a president wants to spend a lot of money on pet projects, or wants to cut taxes for his kind of people. That's a fairly involved process. That requires legislation, needs to be passed by both houses of Congress. They need to reconcile the bills, needs to be signed. It can take uh, even under extraordinary circumstances, it certainly takes months. It's not a frictionless thing. The way that you change monetary policy is that the Federal Open Market Committee takes a vote in Washington. At the end of the meeting, they get on the phone to the open market desk in New York, which uh, calls up some banks, or actually, I guess it's all done with mouse clicks these days, and buys some treasury bills and drives down the interest rates. So it
Mm,
basically happens in a matter of hours, and it's there no muss, no fuss. Which is a tremendously, if you're a politician who wants to uh, make your poll numbers look better in the next few months, and are not worried about the long term. Uh, Fed is a really easy tool to use.
yeah.
Um, if you have subscribed to crackpot economic theories, uh, which yeah, and we have a really clear example of that in Turkey recently, where Erdogan, the autocrat in chief, decided that cutting interest rates actually reduces inflation, and persisted with that belief until inflation hit 80%. The You can do that very easily. And so, the reason we have an independent Fed basically is because it's too powerful and it's too easy to use. And so we've deliberately uh, placed some constraints on the ability of politicians to use this tool. And if that's gone, and if your great concern is that you have a self-serving autocrat with crackpot economic ideas. Hey, we got one. So, that's very unnerving.
Right. So a couple of questions on the economics of this. One, and someone asked this in the chat, and I was wondering the same thing. What do you make of the kind of shrug from the markets so far about this week?
Yeah, I'm writing about that as we speak.
Okay. Oh,
The
good. We got a preview. Yeah, people didn't hear
uh,
this, but before we came on, Paul was saying he only had 26 words of his column today written. So
uh,
we got to get you off of here. We won't keep you too long.
so I think the right way to think about this is that markets, we have an idealized economics model where markets take into account all information and think it all through and model it. Um, what we really have, a nice phrase from Nathan Tankus, who I've talked to, that markets are conventional wisdom processors.
Mm,
And there's a lot actually in John Maynard Keynes about that, about how at any given time there's a conventional wisdom, what people believe, and markets very rarely, um, they're actually very bad at discounting the possibility of catastrophic events, even when it's obvious that the that that those catastrophic events are a real possibility.
yeah.
Um, I've actually been looking through, trying to find examples of sort of catastrophe foretold that was actually um, showed up in the markets until the last possible minute, and I can't find any. I
Yeah.
mean, the housing bubble of the of the mid 2000s was massive and obvious, and it really didn't take a whole lot of work to see that, not necessarily. I don't think many people expected the depth of the financial crisis, but to expect that there were going to be a lot of defaults on subprime mortgages, uh, that certainly had to be a significant you should have been thinking about that. But we can actually look at the market prices of securities based on subprime mortgages, and they didn't start falling until just a few months before all hell broke loose.
Mm,
Um, if we look at the euro crisis, and we ask, when did the bond markets start to realize that maybe those southern European countries that have been borrowing vast sums of money from northern Europe were not really good bets? It's really like a month before everything hit the wall. So, why expect this to be different? We have, highly professional term. We do talk about Wile E. Coyote moments because, according to the laws of cartoon physics, when Wile E. Coyote runs off a cliff, he takes 10 steps or so until he looks down. And it's only when he notices that there's nothing underneath him that he falls. And that is the historical behavior of this. So for whatever reason, the conventional wisdom now is that it's business as usual, and we're not going to, even though you can, everybody's heard the arguments that says that a politicized Fed is going to be disastrous. It's gonna take it's gonna take some actually scary, inflation reports before this really, really hits.
And how would you compare it to the market freak out that did really perhaps affect Trump in the initial stages of of tariffs this year? Again,
Well,
just conventional wisdom.
yeah, I mean, what happened was that the tariffs, the size and the scope, and the sheer craziness of the tariffs did come as a shock, and they did shock people out of their equilibrium. And I think partly also there are legends about tariffs.
Mm,
Tariffs are a bad thing, but
yeah,
lots of people have been brought up being told that the Smoot-Hawley tariff caused the Great Depression, which is not true, not remotely true. It was a bad thing, but not that bad. And what so the tariff thing was big enough to shock markets, but only for a few weeks. And when
yeah, that's
people sort of looked around and says, "Well, it doesn't look like the Great Depression so far," um, markets went pretty much back to where they'd been before, and the old
yeah.
conventional wisdom reasserted itself. So I think that's it was interesting, and people have said, we have there are a lot of really scary things out there, none of which have been reflected. The tariffs caught people's attention, but only for a few weeks. And now it's as if, it's as if it's still January 19th, and the world is still the way we thought it was. And anyone who pays any attention to the underlying stuff says, no, it isn't. But the markets aren't ready to accept that yet.
All right, two more economic things on this, Paul. And one is you said at the beginning there might be a case for lower interest rates right now, and what are the best and worst case scenarios of a Fed that is under the control of the White House? And let's start with this White House. And then I'd also like to you stretch your imagination a little bit and talk about if this ends up being the world we live in, and you have a Democratic president who decides, you know what, the independence of the Fed is over. I'm going to do the same thing Trump did. What would be the dream, uh, you know, Democratic or liberal policy if the Fed was more of a tool of the president?
Wow. So, I mean, we are in a situation. This is, um, you cut interest rates uh, if the economy is weakening. You raise interest rates if inflation is running hot. And we are in a situation right now where the economy is weakening and inflation is running hot. So what do you do? It's really it's a tough call, and you can make an honest case for both for even for raising rates, but certainly you can make a case for standing pat. But you can also make a case that, well, the some of the anecdotal stuff suggests the economy may be weakening faster than the official numbers show yet, and cardboard box sales are way down. That's, believe it or not, given think about
What's
how
that
we
an
get our
indicator
stuff.
of?
That's a real sort of, as we say, high frequency indicator. So maybe we need it's time to cut rates, but on the other hand, inflation is stores. The tariffs are really starting to filter through to consumer price. Anyway, so it's a case. I actually, um, don't know what I would do.
Hmm,
It's a genuinely hard case.
got
Now
it.
the trouble is that okay, so but we have Trump, who will not admit to either side of that. He says the economy is
That was
extremely
great.
hot, and we have no inflation, and furthermore, we should cut interest rates by 3 full percentage points, which is a completely, incoherent position. And if the numbers actually start to get bad in either direction, we've already seen them. We got some bad numbers on employment growth, so he fired the Commissioner of Labor Statistics. Will We're probably about to start getting some serious inflation news, and which actually comes from the same agency. So maybe there's a purge of the whole staff at the BLS. And so, if you're flying in blind, if you're flying in a situation where nobody dares, I mean, it's the same thing about bombing Iran. If you have a situation where you fire people who bring you bad news, and you assert dictatorial power over policy, God knows. Now, I don't. What I actually suspect is that if we ever do get a Democratic president, they will try to restore some kind of Fed autonomy. Just that
Yeah,
itself would be a positive signal. I think by the time, if we get to that point, by the time we get there, people will have seen the damage that a politicized Fed can do. And the uh 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 in Britain, the uh the Bank of England used to be just a department of the Exchequer, the Treasury Department, essentially. But after it did a good job of managing the fallout from the pound crisis of 1992, they decided actually having an independent Bank of England is a good thing, and so they made that actually part of the charter, that they are politically independent. And I could imagine that choose your fighter, but the
yeah,
President Newsom or President Pritzker or whatever might go ahead and say, and as one of my acts to restore sanity to America, I am uh, 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 passing legislation that formalizes the independence of the Federal Reserve. I think that's
yeah.
probably the most likely outcome.
Yeah, to me, this is one of the biggest questions that hangs over the Trump presidency, assuming a Democrat is back in power, is how much of the politicized government is remains, and how much Democrats decide this is just the way things are. You know, do they go person by person, purging the Department of Justice of all of these, Trump lackeys? For one easy question along these lines is, Kash Patel is the FBI director. He's supposed to have a 10-year term, a norm that, used to be sacrosanct. I don't think any Democratic president is going to keep Kash Patel. And I
Oh,
think, they're, everything that Trump has politicized and turned into a tool of the White House, all of the guardrails and internal structures that prevented complete politicization of our government. It's a big question for Democrats is how much they promise to restore that.
oh, I
The
think
independence of the Fed may be an easy call.
I think actually, well, I mean, completely out of my field here, but um, you know, uh, Pritzker, who is clearly one of the contenders now, made a real fire-breathing speech the other day, and one of the things he said is, if you have participated as a
Yeah,
government official in illegal actions by this government, you will personally be held legally liable. It's not just
yeah,
that we will fire you, but we will prosecute you. And I
yeah.
think that is uh, we have to uh, if we ever come out the other end of this, we're going to have a serious process of de-Trumpification. Um, Now, economic policy may be one of the harder ones. Actually, the Trump put on some bad, badly conceived tariffs on China in particular. And Biden never
I'd
tried to
kept him.
undo them.
Yeah.
But that was, that was a political calculation. Nobody likes China. Anyone who tried to liberalize trade with China again would be open to accusations, um, but I would imagine that a Democratic president would find ways to, go back to normal trading relations with the European Union. I mean, these are good guys. These are our friends, and hopefully we can get back now. It'll take decades to regain the credibility that we had a few months ago, but that's the way I think it goes. I think it's selective. I think
Yeah.
that some of what Trump's done, smart or not, is probably going to be politically irreversible, but not all of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. With trade and foreign policy, it may be easier to sort of be more traditional, but I think in a lot of other ways, this is a whole nother conversation. I used to think that this was a temporary, rupture and we'd get past it and we would go back to, the good old days of when I was covering politics that now looks really like a golden age from like the Watergate reforms up until, the end of the Obama administration when uh that when good government was really, really important, and if you violated any of the sort of principles of good government, there was a pretty steep cost,
Oh,
including from your own party. And boy, that world just seems gone.
well, the idea that you don't redistrict except once every 10 years after the census, um, that's gone, and it's gone because you can't be unilaterally good guys when the other side is, uh, you don't you don't bring a set of traditional norms to a gunfight. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Last thing, Paul, I'll let you go, and I got to write your column. Um, is there what's the next thing you're watching for in terms of how the Fed um, deals with this, or just in general with this saga between the White House and the Fed? What do you think is the most important thing for us to know next?
Well, I think where we're going to need to, first of all, we're going to have to watch the Lisa Cook affair. I mean, the Fed issued a statement which was very Fed-like, and that it was slightly obscure language, and you sort of had to parse what did they say there, but seemed to
Yeah,
say that she still has her job.
yeah.
And, but there will come a point when Trump says, "Well, now that she's gone, I'm appointing, Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, to fill her seat," and at that point, the Fed will not be able to use obscure language, to say, and if they, if they allow him to fill that seat, then they've completely capitulated. I don't think they will, but it's really something to watch.
Well,
That's
well, and it's an interesting question. Okay, obviously the Senate will go along with anything Trump proposes, and then the Senate confirms a nominee for a seat that is actually not empty, and then you're going to have this sort of constitutional standoff over who actually is the legitimate occupant of that seat.
Well, we also have uh, yeah, the person Trump is trying to appoint to head the Bureau of Labor Statistics is manifestly unqualified, may be a hardcore QAnon type. There's circumstantial evidence to that effect. They normally that position is filled without any hearings because it's just or a technocrat who's manifestly qualified, but
Yep.
at least the Senate has agreed to hold hearings on this guy. Now we'll see what happens there, but it's possible. That's going to be another test case. What happens in the hearings over the BLS? Um,
Yeah.
and then if um, there will be sometime next month. There will be the next rate decision from the Fed, which will probably uh, I mean, my guess is that unless we get some really bad inflation news between now and then, that they will slightly cut interest rates, but it won't be enough. Trump will
Won't be
rage.
enough to Trump. Yeah.
Well, and he'll say they cut by 25 basis points, but it should be 300. And so that's going to be another flashpoint to watch. And but given the way the world's been working, I think the most likely thing is that whatever will be dominating our minds, 3 or 4 weeks from now will be something that we aren't even thinking of now, something we didn't even imagine was possible.
As soon as we get off this call, there'll be something, this afternoon. That's just the way it is now. Paul, thanks for doing this. I'll let you get to your column. We're great big crowd here. Thanks for uh, building this. Almost 4,000 people on here, and let's do it again soon. Really appreciate it. Good talking to you.
Good to talk to you.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.